Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, Managing Director and founder of The Sales Doctor. I'm talking today about pressure. I'm feeling it. It's a thing. My clients are feeling it. People that I'm speaking with are feeling it. And I wanted to talk about how people handle pressure, specifically sales leaders. They get pressure from the bottom up, from their team, who are feeding back the pressure that their own customers are facing, and they're struggling trying to get sales outcomes. And that's the sales leader who feels that and then has to communicate those results back to the business. And then they're getting top-down pressure. So sometimes they walk around feeling flat as pancakes, and it's not a surprise why that's happening. So this episode is really geared towards sales leaders out there to help you to manage upwards in this market, because as the market tightens and as customers make more and more discerning buying decisions, delay buying decisions, or become finicky about how they go about making, a decision to buy from you or from anyone else that they're in the market with, we need to obviously be better at what we do. And when it comes to managing up, our leaders, the owners of the business or the executive team or the GM level, are sometimes placing inordinate amounts of pressure on sales leaders to come up with rabbits out of hats sometimes. And they're forgetting that even in ordinary times, say if we go back even 12 months ago, which I would say, I know that it's been a weird 4 years, but more ordinary than what we're facing now. Those results didn't come overnight, but because the pressure's on, there's less available revenue out there. Everyone's fighting for it. So it's harder fought for and harder won. So there are three things that I think sales leaders need to do in order to just manage that level of pressure that's coming down from that senior leadership team. The first thing is transparency of activity. The second thing is communicating progress. And the third one is communicating leading indicators. So let me go to the first one, transparency of activity. When activity isn't entered into a CRM in the way that it should be by salespeople, and you have the combination of sales results also not being there, and senior leaders, owners of businesses have access to that CRM and they're not seeing either, is it any wonder that they start to panic and think that nothing's being done? So what I would say is we need to make sure that we're thinking as if those senior leaders are our customers. And what do those customers need to see? Well, they need to see what's going on around activity, and they need that transparency of activity. So giving them access to those pages or those areas in a CRM is really important, but we need to educate them about what that actually means, and so that they don't freak themselves out as well, because if they're not educated about how to use a CRM or how to manage a pipeline, they can actually read it incorrectly. And so our objective of being transparent can actually backfire if we don't also educate. So my really strong suggestion here is not just to create transparency and leave it, but to create transparency to the level that we think is demonstrative of the activity being done, how the activity is being done, and the progress that we're making, but at account level, so showing what our team is actually doing account by account by account, in a week, in a month, in a quarter, with the cumulative result. But then taking those senior leaders on a bit of a journey. Now you might argue, well, I shouldn't really have to do that because it's none of their business and they should sort of stay out of it. It's not their remit. Well, these aren't ordinary times, and nature abhors a vacuum. And I would say that human beings abhor a vacuum. And when there isn't information provided, people make up stories. So knowing that about human nature, let's work with it rather than trying to wish that it wasn't existing in the first place, and take that senior leadership team on a journey that you might not have to do in a normal time because there isn't as much pressure. But when there is pressure, let's help them to understand, or let's help them to understand what the market's actually doing, the challenges that our sales team are facing, and the fantastic work that they're doing in spite of all of those challenges. Who they're meeting with, how often they're meeting with them, what they're meeting with them about, and the progress that they're making when they're in front of them. Now, when I talk about progress, which leads me into the second point, I'm not just talking about progress with an account across the pipeline. Of course, that's a given. We need to educate our senior leadership team about the progress that our team is making to realise an opportunity, particularly a new one, but also progress that, say, our account managers are making to grow an account, or the progress that they're making to protect and fortify an account against competitors, because that's also an active strategy that they need to employ in this sort of market. So when we talk about progress, we might be talking about the traction that they're getting across the organisation with certain decision makers and stakeholders and influencers in that organisation, the insight that they're building and that cumulative insight, and how that starts to indicate patterns that are happening in the market that our business can use either in its marketing material, in its sales approach, or in some other way, so that we can adjust and be ahead of the curve as much as possible. Because the thing that we sometimes miss in organisations is the fact that our salespeople are at the coalface. They're the people that are hearing things before anyone else in the business hears them. And when they bring them back to the business once, might just be once off, twice, might just be a coincidence. But after the third time, you start to say, this is actually a pattern, and this is something that we need to pay attention to. So it helps when a sales leader uses that sort of insight that our sales team is getting and educating up the chain to the senior leadership team, but also helping them to join the dots between what we're presenting them with and what that might mean for the business and how the business can benefit from some of that too. So we've got transparency of activity, we've got progress and communicating progress, which is part of that transparency. But then we've got things like leading indicators. So when the results aren't there, sales leaders need to communicate the things that will lead to results. So these are the behaviours that, when they're performed, will help that senior leadership team to understand that it's not that nothing's being done, it's just that things take time. And again, it's an education process, and even though it's frustrating when people are questioning the work that we're doing, questioning the integrity of our team or how hard our team is working, we also have to put ourselves in the shoes of the owners, whose money it is, or in the shoes of the senior leadership team. And when we think about a CFO, for example, they're the ones managing the purse strings, so they have an entitlement to know as well. We need to understand that, and we need to treat them like customers when it comes to our communication. So coming back to the leading indicators, that will be things like what our meeting cadence is. So how many new opportunities we're meeting with every single week, every single month in the quarter, what our conversion rate is, and the things that we're doing to maximise our conversion rate, what we're doing to reduce the cost of customer acquisition. So that will be meaningful for those owners and the senior leadership team as well, because if we're working on reducing our customer acquisition cost, it demonstrates that we've got commercial acumen, and that we're working with our sales team to have positive impact on not only on margin, but also that's going to flow through to the bottom line as well. So it's not just about top line that we're driving, we're also really driving bottom line. So reducing customer acquisition cost, Maximising margin. So what the thing that the work that we're doing with our sales teams to educate them around not discounting when there's enormous pressure to do so in a tight market, so that we preserve margin, and what are some of the other things that we're doing, or the techniques that we're using when we're in front of customers to preserve margin. Then we've got to think about other things like how we're reducing cost to serve, and the ways that, again, we're educating our sales team to do that, and what that really looks like when we're putting together a contract with a new client, or we're arranging the way that we're going to engage post signing of a new account, because reducing cost to serve delivers better profit. So there's some of the leading indicators that we can communicate up the chain. So we've got meetings, we've got reducing all of those commercial elements there, and maximising, preserving margin, maximising profit. Of course, I know that I'm not talking about sales here, because I would hope that we all think that that's a bit of a given, that that's a driver and we need to increase sales. Of course we do. But when sales isn't there, I'm talking about all of the other things that we can talk about to those senior decision makers and senior leaders, so that they have that level of comfort and understanding of what is actually taking place. We can talk about the number of proposals that are out there and the turnaround time for those proposals, because sometimes people don't understand too that there's a decision-making process that our customers and our prospects go through, and that takes time too. So they also need to, like, if we can also demonstrate that, sales cycles might have expanded, even though we're working really hard on minimising those and maximising conversion rate, if we can show that there's a demonstrated pattern that's expanding that just because of the nature of the market, then there will be a willingness, or more of a willingness, for the business to support our sales team as they work really hard to bring opportunity back. So my advice to sales leaders is to take lots of long walks, to take lots of deep breaths, to make sure that you're in the right frame of mind before you have any of these conversations, and to be as prepared as you possibly can be. Prepared on two fronts. One is the education piece with your sales team, so that you can speak with certainty about the things that you are doing, because you are doing them with your sales team up the chain, and then making sure that you're proactive in creating those meetings so that you can have those sorts of conversations. That will go a long way to fostering trust across the business, fostering support for your sales team, and finally getting some recognition for all of the work that you're doing in this very tight market. Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how The Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, please email me at ingrid@thesalesdoctor.com.au. Visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.